Hello, everyone. Thanks a lot once again for joining in. So, like I mentioned, we'll be starting off at 7:35 p.m. IST. That's in another 3 minutes, maybe, because we have some people joining in. Meanwhile, for our viewers who are already with us, you guys can go ahead and maybe introduce yourself. That is, what's your background in the chat box so that we know what sort of viewers do we have. If you're a developer or if you're associated with any of the AR, VR industry organizations, feel free to shoot them out in the chat box and just to know that we all are knowing who are our viewers. Thanks a lot for joining. Okay. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining us this evening. So, my name is Azhar, and I'll be your host for the day for this webinar. And before we move on to our speaker, that is, we have Akash with us. So, before I talk about Akash and before he goes ahead with his session, let me just give you all a brief about what Skillenza is and what exactly do we do. So, basically, we are we are a platform for professionals and organizations where they can come and either host challenges, organize challenges, or professionals can take part in those challenges and solve them. And now you ask what's in it for them. So basically, they once you start solving these challenges, you have a lot of rewards for that you'll be getting. It could be job opportunities, it could be internships, or something that's very exciting, that is the goodies as well, right? And apart from that, we also have an experience graph that is based on the activities that you've been doing and based on your past activities that you've taken part through Skillenza platform, right? And similarly, one such activity that we have live right now is the Lensathon, which is a lens. It's an AR augmented reality lens creation hackathon, which is organized by Snapchat India, and it is live on Skillenza platform. And there are a lot of interesting things for you to grab as well, so you guys can check it out on our platform. And now I won't take much of your time, and let me just quickly welcome our speaker for the day. So we have Akash, who's the head of product at Scapic, and he's an amazing speaker. He's an amazing developer and also an amazing designer. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over the platform to you, Akash, for your presentation.
Thanks a lot. Hey, thank you for having me, and thanks to every one of you who have joined in today, especially on a Friday night. So thanks everyone for joining in. So as Azhar said, we're going to be talking about decoding digital realities. But before we get into that, let me just share screen. Azhar, I'm not able to share my screen.
Just a second. Just give me one more. Yes, you can go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, so just a minute. I think Rahul says my voice is breaking. Let me just try a different band. Sure. Sorry about that.
No issues. I completely understand.
Can you hear me fine now?
Yes, yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay.
And you can share your screen, Akash. Can you just let me?
Yeah, I'll just do that. Perfect. I think you should be able to see my screen now.
Yes. And just one quick thing for our viewers. So if at all you have any questions, I request you all to please go ahead and shoot them out. We'll get them addressed post Akash's session. Over to you, Akash.
Yeah. So how I thought I'll run this is I'll first take through all these technologies, talk a little questions, and yeah. Okay, perfect. So let me just keep it short, everyone. Hey, everybody. I'm Akash, and I head product at Scapic. So I've been a part of the founding team, right from the beginning, while we were, trying to think of ways in which we can solve this whole problem of content, when it comes to these technologies of AR, VR, 3D, 360. A lot of you might be Hello.
Hi, Akash, we lost you there. I'm not sure what exactly. Maybe you can switch off your camera, if that's fine.
Really sorry. I think I have some network issues on my end. Let me just try switching to another one.
No issues, no issues. Take your time.
Yeah. Okay, I think we should be back to the presentation again.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So as I was saying, I've been a part of the founding team at Scapic, and right from the beginning, 2.5 years ago, when we started off, what we set out to solve was this whole problem of content when it comes to these technologies of 3D, AR, VR, and 360, right? And you might have seen that images and videos are pretty prevalent across the internet right now. But these few technologies have really caught on in the last few years. And especially when we started off, it wasn't very easy to actually get started with this content and for you to actually get your hands dirty over there. So that's where we set out to solve this problem, think of ways in which we can take this whole process of what is now considered a software development process with VR and AR, and try to convert it to a content development process, right? It's as simple as you going to, let's say, a Medium blog and just clicking on the plus button instead of actually going and setting up a server, going and setting up a WordPress account, and then creating a blog. So that's kind of a parallel that we can draw over there. So it's been 2.5 years in the space now. And my role has evolved around the years, and currently I lead product, which requires me to sort of work with some really interesting things and really interesting technologies. Like the kind of analytics that you deal with over here are things like how many people are viewing it in 3D, how people are interacting with these 3D models. It's some really interesting stuff. So let me actually take you through these technologies and show you what exactly I have to offer over here. Okay, perfect. So as I was saying, this is how content has evolved across the internet, right? So we've had content 1.0, which has been purely informative, where we're talking about things like words and written content, things like blogs and all of these. And then we slowly moved on to content 2.0, which was a little more interactive, right? Where we were able to sort of visualize the content that was being written over there. So that's where we got in photos and videos. And finally, we've set into the immersive age right now, where we're talking about technologies like 360, 3D, VR, and AR. So content has always evolved, right? Like this is something that has happened across these years, across these decades right now. But along with that, we've also seen hardware evolve too. We have gone from the mainframes in the 60s down to desktops in the 80s. Now we're at the smartphone age, and we're now slowly stepping into the VR and AR, which is the future. So while content has evolved, a lot has happened on the hardware front too. But before I actually go into talking about these technologies and what exactly has happened over there, a lot of you might be new to these technologies, right? Like these technologies of 3D, VR, AR, MR, all these are terminologies, right? Like so let me sort of break them down for you and make them a little more easier. So let's talk about these three technologies, which is VR, which is also known as virtual reality. Then we've got AR, which is also known as augmented reality, and then MR, which is also known as mixed reality. So when we're talking about virtual reality, it's about basically tricking our brains into thinking something virtual is real. It's putting us in a virtual environment and tricking the brain into thinking that virtual environment is real, right? It's taking us away from the real world, right? And it's going to put all of this virtual content around you, and that's pretty much what virtual reality is all about. It's mostly important to make sure that presence is actually there whenever you actually consume a VR experience, and that involves actually taking care of your different senses, from your sight to your hearing to the touch, and the ability to use your hands to actually move around content over there. So it's all about transporting you away from the real world. When we come to augmented reality, that's when we take the virtual content and bring it into our world, right? We augment or take this digital content and put it on top of our world, or augment it on top of our world. So this is what we refer to as augmented reality, where let's say any virtual information, such as let's say some furniture 3D models, or maybe I wanted to see some information of the weather forecast. You might have seen the Google Glass. All of these are examples of augmented reality, which basically takes this virtual content and brings it into our world. We're not stepping into another world entirely. And then finally, we've got MR, which is mixed reality, which is an extension to virtual and augmented reality, where now we don't just get to view this content, but we also get to interact with it, and the virtual content gets to interact with us too. So let's take an example of how, let's say that if there was a virtual chair, or there's some virtual information, I can put my hand out and actually move things around in virtual space, right? So that's what we refer to as mixed reality, or MR. And all of these three technologies together, which is VR, AR, and MR, are collectively known as XR, or extended reality, right? Or simply XR. So this is what we refer to as the three main technologies when we're talking about immersive tech or spatial computing. There are several terms that exist out there, but broadly, this is how it all started off, as VR, AR, MR, and collectively known as XR. And you might have seen it in all these forms, right? Right from, let's say, your smartphone, where you might have taken a look at an example known as Pokemon Go, of augmented reality, or you might have actually used a virtual reality headset, to try out, VR content. Or if you've actually tried out an AR headset like the HoloLens or any of these other devices, you can actually get this content and play around with it. And that's more of an example of MR that we're talking about. So the first example that you see is augmented reality, then we've got virtual reality, and then we've got an example of mixed reality. But this is the future that we are stepping into, right? one where everything blends in together, one where the digital and real are no more, they don't have any barriers between them. And the future is one with no UI, right? Like one which is very natural to play around with, one which is really easy to play around and interact with and take from our digital screens. It's no more going to be bound to a 2D rectangle anymore. We're going to be able to take this and place it into our real worlds and start interacting with it directly, right? So this is the future that we're heading into. But where did it all start, right? You might have all probably, some of you might have seen this, some of you may not, but you might have seen these. These are known as fiducial markers. And this is where AR, started off. This is signs of infancy, right? And I'm going to be talking a lot about AR in this presentation, more about the other technologies, because that's something that's really prevalent in the age right now and something that we have seen a lot of adoption for in these times. So it's important, for me to sort of educate you about these technologies too, and I'll be focusing mainly on AR. So that's where it started off with this marker. So what the marker would do is, give certain data or information for the camera to recognize. And once this camera recognizes that particular information, it's able to place a virtual object on top of this marker once it recognizes it, right? So this camera is trained to understand and recognize that marker specifically. And whatever virtual content you have trained to sort of put on top of the marker, that's what's going to show up on your camera over there. So this is how marker AR, as we call it, started off. And there were several ways in which it has evolved. And now you can simply place a poster or an image, and if you point your phone at it, you can have certain virtual content show up. You no more need something like a QR code or the marker that you sort of see over here, right? And that is one form of AR that we're talking about, right? Which is marker AR. Then we've got the next form of AR, which is markerless AR, right? That is where you don't really require any marker at all. And that's where your camera can detect any surface by a technology known as SLAM. So that's simultaneous localization and mapping, where your camera can actually detect the surface that it's seeing, maybe a table, a floor, and it's able to actually take that and place certain virtual content on top of it. That's the example that you see over here, right? Where this particular device has a camera, it's able to detect this particular table, and it's able to detect the surface, and now it's able to place this content on top of it, right? So these are the two forms of AR that we're talking about, which is markerless and marker-based AR. And the one that we are seeing really take off right now is especially markerless AR, because it's more accessible to everyone, right? And all of this started with one thing, the evolution of the camera, right? So the camera went from just being this small tiny thing that sat on the back of a phone to being so important in our everyday lives right now, where we capture and share every single thing that we do on either social media and other channels. And it's now evolved to even augment content on top of our real world and not just capture it. So that's the future that we are heading into. Not just tell stories, but augment content on top of it and tell stories with them. Along with this, we have also not just seen, the different types of augmented reality evolve, but we've even seen the hardware evolve. So the current form of augmented reality that all of you might have interacted with would be this, which is your smartphone, right? You can simply open up your smartphone and consume augmented reality content on it by just opening up your camera. But then we've got other forms of augmented reality too, by using something called as HMDs, or head-mounted devices. And these are the devices that you see over here, right? So this is something that we call the Magic Leap. This is the HoloLens by Microsoft. This is the Vuzix Plate. This is another company that's created a headset. And this is another device called the Nreal, right? So one thing that we've definitely seen are these devices becoming smaller and smaller and more closer to what we wear every day, like our glasses. And this is something that we're going to see evolve, right? Like, because this tech is not going to be adopted by consumers and people if it looks like this, right? If it needs to be worn and used by every single person around you, you need to make it look usable, and you need to make it usable in the first place. So that's where a lot of these manufacturers of these headsets have been trying to get this to be more seamless in our everyday lives. And if you see, Nreal is one of the ways in which this has actually evolved to one of those form factors. Some of you might have actually seen this on the news, but recently there was some leaks about Apple's headset too, and what they're going to be launching. They have something called as the Apple Glass, which is coming out. And this is going to be a really slim form factor, something that can be bought and worn by every single one of you out there, right? And the price point, the speculated price point is around $499, right? Something that's more accessible, something that's as equivalent to a smartphone. Because every single one of these devices, except this one, has costed $2,500 and upwards, right? So that's something that's not really accessible to people out there. It's more accessible to enterprises, and that's where a lot of these the headset manufacturers are focused on, more on the enterprise. But we're starting to see this come more to the consumers, and with brands like Apple leading the way, we're going to see a lot happening over there. And of course, along with all of this, we've also seen a lot of these brands which have taken this in and tried to sort of use these technologies and adopt these technologies into their everyday workflow, right? And one of the main reasons they've done this is because they've seen better engagement with XR content. If you generally see photos, I mean, photos and videos are something that have become so prevalent in our everyday lives that it's just another scroll through our news feeds or just another glance when we, probably go on a blog or another website. But with content such as VR and AR, we've seen huge engagement times. Right? People spend so much more time on this content because it's a lot more interactive. It requires you to, indulge or involve yourself so much more with the content, and it requires your involvement over there, right? And it requires you to move your hand around, place this content into your real life, and with MR coming in soon, for you to be able to actually move things and place things into your real life, right? So content has gotten a lot more interactive, and that's where engagement times have also improved along with that. And what has enabled this is three major things, right? We have talked about the platforms, which I spoke about, Magic Leap, Apple, Oculus, Microsoft. These are different platforms that have sort of enabled this content to be possible. Then we've also got networks, which is like Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, Snapchat. You might have seen a lot of augmented reality content across all these four networks over there. And I'm pretty sure every single one of you would have used an AR filter on Facebook, Instagram, or any one of these networks that exist. And then finally, we've got technologies like computer vision, 5G networking, edge computing, and of course, hardware like the camera. All of these have evolved over the years, and every single one of these have taken us one step forward in actually enabling these different technologies to be adopted in such a wide manner. And of course, we are going to be seeing the market size of the VR and AR industry by 2022 to hit around 200 billion, right? Like that's a huge number that we're talking about. And that's because it's one, becoming more accessible for people out there to actually, go and create content over there. Companies like Facebook, Snapchat have made this possible through their different networks. And of course, there's a lot happening on the web, which I will get to, which has enabled these brands and businesses to also adopt them into their everyday lives. And we've seen AR being enabled across every surface, right? Right from applications. You might have probably seen this on, let's say, the Facebook app, the Instagram app, or even applications like Pokemon Go, IKEA. There are several apps which are integrating AR into their actual workflows to make you do different things in different manners. IKEA might be doing it to actually help you understand products a lot better. When we're talking about Pokemon Go, it might be for you to play a game and be more involved with it over there. But there are different applications which have different use cases that are using AR right now at the moment. Then we are talking about search. If you guys actually go on Google search right now, don't go right away. But if you guys go on search and probably take a look at a tiger, go search for tiger, or search for mitochondria, right? Or go search for a skeleton, right? You'll see that on Google search itself, companies like Google have actually enabled AR on the search itself. Like whenever you search for this, you get a 3D model and augmented reality right away, right? By actually doing this, consumers have been more open to actually adopting these technologies and have been able to easily get themselves involved with these technologies much faster and even be able to educate themselves much faster. And of course, the web has enabled this, right? Where when we're talking about augmented reality and virtual reality previously, we would talk a lot about applications, right? There would be huge applications which you had to install, like the ones which I talked about, and they would probably take a huge storage or a huge amount of processing power on your device to actually make it happen. So this was not very easy for everyone, right? Like not everyone's going to go download an application. Let's say Swiggy or Zomato now want to integrate augmented reality into their devices. Sure, that's one easy workflow that they can probably go through. Let's take another example of probably something that you don't download an app for. Probably something like let's say a news publication, maybe your story or the Times or New York Times or any one of these, right? Like if they want to go ahead and integrate AR, they do have applications, but not every single one of them is going to download an application. That's where they're actually enabling these experiences on the web. And now you can consume augmented reality experiences right from your browser, right? Just like how on this search, you were able to consume 3D models and view them over there. You're going to be able to do this on your web browser too. And of course, through messaging, where now apps like Messenger and even Apple's original messaging app allow you to share 3D models directly into these messaging platforms, which means it's so easy to just attach, just like how you would attach an image or a video. You can now attach a 3D model along with that content too, and pushing it out is so much more easier right now. And of course, as I said, social, right, where we're talking about companies like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. Every single one of these platforms have enabled AR in some way or the other. And every single one of them have enabled it for creators to go create AR content over there, which has made it much more easier. And this is something that's taking us to the next step, right? Which was AR was primarily used just by, just for fun and for games. But now we're seeing more and more functional use cases. And that's the reason why this is happening is because of how easy it has actually become to actually use this content across all these different surfaces and how easy it is to create content across each one of these services. And this makes AR really important to e-commerce, retail, and marketing, right? And that's something that we have really seen in the past few years, which is AR influenced commerce has grown through the roof, right? Where we have seen the transaction of goods bought through and actually influenced by augmented reality and 3D has been huge, and we have seen this grow greatly in the last 3 years itself. And this is because of how, again, as I said, content platforms, every single one of these have evolved. But one of the reasons why we've seen it especially grow in this year was because of the times that we are in right now. And I'll just get to that. So you might have seen, like some of these companies, but every single one of these companies that you see over here is actually adopting augmented reality. And they're a part of something called the 3D Commerce Group, which is a part of Kronos. Kronos actually sets standards. So every single standard that you see over there when it comes to 3D, WebGL, OpenGL, all of these are set by this company called Kronos. And they also have this standard now for 3D commerce, where we are actually trying to create standards for how you can actually consume this content on a browser across all of these devices and how this content is actually going to work. We are also Scapic is also a part of this, along with all these other companies like Shopify, Sketchfab, we have Facebook, we have Google, we have Amazon. Every single one of these companies is contributing in some way or the other, right? And we're going to be seeing huge evolution in the next few months or even days, as we've seen. And this is how the industry has been to generally create content. I've talked about the companies, I've talked about the content, but how exactly do you go ahead and create this content, right? This is what's going underneath that layer. This is what's actually happening, on the layers underneath, where these are the tools that you see on the left, and on the right, you see the operating systems, the hardware, the tools, the channels, and the consumption layers on which this is actually being enabled. So I'll just take a bit to sort of talk about this, right? Where, as I said, the hardware, which has enabled this, as there are different companies across. Then we've got operating systems which have enabled this. Then sitting on top of these operating systems are creation tools, where we're talking about platforms like AR Core. AR Core is what enables AR on Android devices. And on Apple, it's AR Kit. And then we've got other platforms like Unity and Unreal. And Scapic is also another way for you to actually go ahead and create this. Then we've got various channels in which you can distribute this content. So we've got, of course, the Magic Leap, browser over there. We've got the Oculus Store. We've got the Steam VR Store, and of course, we have got the browsers which have enabled us to do this. And then finally, we've got consumption, which is people taking the content which are now put across all these channels and consuming it, which happens across applications, content, and of course on the web. And if you see, these are sort of broken across how easy they're used, how difficult they are to use, and how easy it is for you to actually get started without any code, and something that requires you to actually code itself. So this matrix sort of breaks it down that way. And if you see all of these other tools that exist over there on the left and the bottom left quadrant, actually require you to know how to code, and they're slightly difficult to use, right? Where you need to actually be a developer, you need to have certain 3D knowledge. It requires you to get down and dirty with these technologies. These other technologies that sit on the top are slightly difficult to use, but they don't require code. It's a simple, drag and drop tool, but it's still a little difficult to use. Then these tools require, you to code, but they're actually comparatively easy to use. So they're a little more easier. We're talking about tools like AWS Sumerian, CoSpaces, Play Canvas, and we've got other technology like 3JS, Babylon. All of these are a little more easier to use, and they've got ways in which you can easily get started. And then finally, we've got no code tools that sit on the top that are extremely simple for people to get started. And Scapic is one of those platforms that enable people to actually go create this content without any code, right? So now that I've talked about these platforms, I've talked about the content, I've talked about the hardware, how exactly is all of this powered, right? Like how is all of this enabled, right? All of this starts with something that we call the 3D model, right? Everything that I talked about right now, every single one of them is powered by this particular 3D model. This complex set of polygons that we're talking about that actually make up the content that you see. So whenever we're talking about a 3D model, a very good example that I can draw is something that you learned back at your school, where let's say there are points. These points come together to make lines. These lines come together to make polygons, and these polygons come together to actually make a shape, right? And this shape that we're talking about is this actual 3D model over here, which doesn't just have a few polygons, it has multiple polygons in them, right? And these 3D models are first made using these 3D creation tools. So we've got tools like Blender, which is one of the open source tools which exist out there. We've got Maya, we've got 3ds Max. There are several tools that exist out there to actually create these 3D models. And to create these 3D models, that's where we first get started. And to actually create these 3D models, it's not very hard, right? All we need are a bunch of images and videos of your 3D models. Of your content. So let's say you've got furniture and you want to get started with AR and 3D. All you need to do is share across some images of your product, let's say of your chair or of your furniture, or if you've got any other accessories, just share across 5 to 6 images of it. And we can simply take these images and create a 3D model from there, which is actually accurate to scale, right? Even down to the millimeter, right? Like that's how accurate these 3D models can be. And even if you've got technical drawings, let's say you've got a CAD workflow, that's somewhere that's a place where you can share your technical drawings, and that's where these 3D models can be created. And these 3D designers are able to create this in just a matter of a few days, depending on the complexity of the model, or down to a few hours if it's as simple as something like this that you see over here. And once we create this 3D model, there's so much that we can do with it, right? And the first is, of course, putting it on your website. And this is actually an excerpt that I've taken from Shopify. And Shopify actually enables you to integrate these 3D models onto your website. And when they integrated these 3D models on the website, they saw an increase in conversion by around 2.5x, right? Where people who were able to interact with 3D models in comparison to people who actually interacted with images and videos, they saw a 2.5 increase in actually the conversion rate, because now people are able to interact with these models and actually do a lot more with these 3D models itself. And this takes us to the next step, right? Like, sure, you're going ahead and integrating these 3D models on your website, you're using it in your applications, you're using it across all these different places. But that takes us to the next step, which is augmented reality. And the reason why we actually provide these augmented reality experiences is to provide customers with a better than retail product experience, right? You might have seen that in the last 2 months, because of all the lockdowns, it has been extremely hard for a lot of these retailers, manufacturers out there, and these brands to actually get people into the stores and get them to feel and touch these products, right? That's a huge part of the buying decision that actually comes in. And influencing this buying decision on online website is not very easy for a lot of these brands and businesses. So they've been finding it really hard to not have a physical store where they can actually have someone to take you through the product, for you to actually see the scale of this product, see the size of this product. Every single one of these has been very hard in the last few months. And people can't pick up these products, they can't try it on, they can't feel it, right? So this is where the major problem has existed. And this is where augmented reality comes in and actually solves this, right? Where in augmented reality, it allows your customer to take the 3D model and place it into their real world to understand the size, to understand the dimensions and the details of the product, right? Where let's say we're talking about a sofa or even something like a lamp, like the ones next to me, or even something like clothing or jewelry. Every single one of these products requires to be tried on and seen in my space, right? Like people really like bespoke experiences. People like personalized experiences, experiences that fit into their own space and their own world. And that's where people want to actually try out, and customers want to try out and see what these experiences look like. And doing this on a website is not very easy. And this is where augmented reality really helps, where at a click of a button, you can now place it in your real world. And as I said, the 3D models are to scale, which means that a chair takes up the same size as what it would if you would really place it in there. And you can go closer and see the details, which are again close to details of the actual chair itself. And that's going to really influence your buying decision, because now you're able to see how it fits in, you're able to see the size, and now you can make a more informed purchase in comparison to something where you just see an image on a website or a video and then make a decision, and probably having have end up you have returned a lot of the products that you've actually purchased. So this is something that prevents that. And it doesn't just stop there, right? Like something that we have generally seen is, you can make a 3D model, put it in AR, VR, all of these different ways. But that's where companies like us are pioneering another way in which you can take these 3D models and do something more, which is actually take them and do something called, this is what we call it. We call it a shot maker. But we're able to use machine learning and a few other technologies in order to take these 3D models and place it in a virtual environment and actually do a product photo shoot, right? Where currently, again, this is something that a lot of brands are facing problems with, where they're not able to actually go to a studio and take shots of their products, right? Where right from someone like a Myntra or a Flipkart, one of these bigger brands, to even the smaller brands, the SMBs are selling on Shopify, Magento, every single one of these companies have been hit by this, where they're not able to actually take their products into the studio, take photos of it on a white background, or even place it in a really good setup environment and take a photo. And this has been holding back a lot of inventory for a lot of these people. And they've been facing a lot of issues and delaying their inventory, and stocks are really hitting. And there are multiple issues that are compounding because of this, right? That's where 3D can now enable this, where now you can actually place the 3D model using these technologies in a virtual environment. Every single one of these products that you see over here, from the shelf to the dining table to the TV unit that you see over there, every single one of these are all 3D models, right? Even to the models that you see on top of the table over there, that is the globe, the plant, every single one of them is 3D model, but you see how close they look to reality, right? This is the kind of realism that we can get with 3D models. Sorry. And this is something that we can enable over there. No complicated physical shoots required. And every single lifestyle shot, the product images on a white background. If you want to place a human next to it to probably go use the product, every single one of this can be done using the 3D model itself. And of course, this is not just limited to furniture and actual accessories and other models. We can also do this with clothing or even accessories. With clothing, we can actually take your products, and if you've just got a simple flat lay or an image of your product, this can be taken and converted into a 3D model. And now you can take multiple shots on an actual model itself, where we have our algorithms to do that. And that's something that can be enabled with a 3D model. And then we go to the final step, which is customize, right? Customers don't just want to simply, choose a product and then purchase it. They want to see it in different colors. They want to, again, as I said, want something bespoke, right? Where they want to try it out in different colors. They want to try out different configurations. So this is where these customizers really help. And having a customizer that can actually show your customers what it looks like in real life, and then take it one step ahead and put it into the space using augmented reality, is really going to help take you one step forward. Where these customizers can be integrated directly on a website or an application. And these customizers have simple interfaces where customers can click, drag, and get a customization that they like, and then go ahead and make a purchase right away, right? So these are the different ways in which AR and 3D has really enabled a lot of these retail brands and businesses. And these are different ways in which these businesses and brands are actually adopting these technologies and integrating them into their everyday workflows. So I thought I'll take you a little more into what I was talking about, right? Where I spoke about a 3D model and all these polygons. So this is that 3D model that I was talking about. Let me just play that video once more. So if you see, it's made up of all these tiny polygons, and they come together to actually create this 3D model that you see over there. And then we apply something called textures on top, which is a more realistic replication of us trying to get it to look like the actual model itself. And then finally, we are able to put it on a browser using something called a renderer, which again, we power over there by using underlying technologies like WebGL, OpenGL. All of these are different technologies that power this. And we're able to enable these 3D models to be viewed on a browser or on an application. And we're able to take this 3D model and take it one step forward, as I said, put it on a website, and then you're able to take it and place it into your real environment over there. Okay, my bad. I think I put the wrong video over here. But yeah, you're able to take this and place it into your real environment. I'll probably share a few links across, which you guys can go try out after this session. You can actually open it up on your phones and then try it out over there. But it's as simple as a click of a button, right? And once you put it in AR, you might have noticed how the buy button comes up right there itself. So if you look at the bottom over here, the buy button is going to show up right there, and I can make a purchase directly in AR itself. So this is something that we've enabled, and a lot of these platforms and browsers have enabled to have this whole experience so seamless for your end customers. And like I said, you can also integrate it and look at it on your desktop browsers. So you can take a look at it over here, go closer, take a look at all the details. And this is something that I was referring to as the shot maker, where in general, if you had to take a product and get some shots like this, you would have to actually go and take a physical photo shoot, right? Where now we can virtually create all of this. We have different backgrounds and environments. And in a matter of minutes, we can create, let's say, 100 shots for your actual product in just a matter of minutes, right? And all we require is this simple 3D model. You choose a bunch of virtual environments and just hit render. And that's all you need to do to actually get these shots out. And then finally, as I said, a customizer. So if you see, that's a 3D model that you have over there. And you can add in different customizations. You can change the colors, look at it from every angle, and then make a purchase over there. And if you see, it's extremely close to reality, right? And if you open up this device, open up this experience on your actual devices, you can actually see it in your space by placing it in the real world over there. So this is something that is actually enabled by these customizers, and all enabled by that single 3D model that I was talking about. So these are the different ways in which a single 3D model can be used and enabled across all of these experiences. As I said, of course, this is one way where you can take it and put it into augmented reality. But again, you can go put it into a virtual environment too, where let's say you wanted to collaboratively work on a particular 3D model, let's say like a car. That's something that you're going to use probably virtual reality for over there, right? But there are ways in which mixed reality headsets and devices are coming ahead to actually enable you to put this into your space, into your real world, and work on it over there. So we're seeing a lot of these technologies evolve. But now that I spoke about these technologies, I spoke about how different brands are using it, the different formats in which they're actually using it. How can one go about and create this content, right? That's where companies like us come in, Scapic, where we have been pioneering these no-code tools to make it much more simpler for you to actually go ahead and create this content, right? So we've gone ahead and created a no-code tool that simply allows you to take this 3D model that I was talking about and do every single one of the parts that I just spoke about, right from putting it onto your website to taking it into augmented reality, to generating the shots on ShotMaker, to even actually customizing it and creating a customizer experience like the one I just showed you. So this is a video that showcases you our tool and how it works. Let me just play it. So if you see, you start off with a 3D model, or you can even go ahead and upload a 3D model. So once you do so, if there are any issues on the 3D model, we actually tell you what the issues are. And then, you're, okay, let me just, I think I went to the next presentation. Sorry about that. Yeah. So we tell you any issues which exist on your 3D model over there, and then you're, able to continue. And we take you into this interface where we have different formats in which you can integrate it onto your website. One of them is a widget. So let's say you wanted to integrate this experience onto your landing page. You can do that with a widget. If you wanted to integrate it on your product page, that's something like I showed you with the Nike example. That's something that you can do with the 3D embed. And if you wanted to integrate it, let's say on a banner image, that's something that you can do with a link. Then you can go ahead and customize the different brand colors on the widget, choose different themes. You can add in a custom description. So we've got a light theme and a dark theme for you to choose from. If you want to talk about your product, you can go ahead and do that over here. Let me just fast forward this a little. You can go ahead and add a custom CTA button at the bottom. Let's say you wanted to navigate this from your landing page onto another website. That's something you can do. And if you see, the main constant experience that exists on the top is the 3D model that people can interact with and even view in augmented reality right there. And if people open up this experience on a desktop, they can, we simply give them a QR code, which they can scan and open it up on their mobile devices. So let me continue playing this. So you can customize what the CTA button looks like. And let's say even, you wanted to put a product video over there. That's something that you can do over here by, using Scapic. And if you see the same color, brand colors apply to the 3D viewer over here. And this is the button that I was speaking about that you can integrate onto, your banner images and onto your website itself. And then finally, we also have a feature of you adding in annotations. So let's say you wanted to talk about certain specific parts of your 3D model. So this is where you can go ahead and add an annotation on top of your 3D model, give it a title, give it a description, and go ahead and save it. And you can add multiple of these annotations on your 3D model. There's no limit over there. So this allows your customers to not just see your 3D model, but even take a look at some parts of the details right there on your website itself, which they would rather have had to, probably scroll down, take a look at more details, and like read through a lot more. But now all of this experience is now on the single unit that they integrate onto the website itself. So as I said, you can add multiple annotations. And then finally, you can choose certain animations. Let's say you wanted your 3D model to rotate around, when people come in. So that's something, sorry about that. That's something that you can do with animations. And then finally, you're able to go ahead and publish it. And if you see, we give you a link, right? We give you a link which can be easily put on any social media channel, right? From Twitter to a Medium blog to Facebook. And the 3D model actually shows up on Twitter and Medium. So you can not just integrate this onto your website, but go ahead and integrate this across social platforms. And we make it as simple as just a link, just like, a Google Doc or a Google slide that you'd probably use. And at the bottom, if you want to integrate it onto your website, we give you the integration code, which you can then copy and go put on your website. And if you see, if you open up that link, this is the experience that you get. We actually progressively load the model just like you would load a YouTube video in different qualities so that the end user gets a very seamless experience regardless of the bandwidth that they're on. Then if they hit on the view in your space, you're able to scan this and open it up on your mobile device. And once you put it into augmented reality, you can actually see what this table looks like in your space. And as I said, it's to scale, so you can go closer, look at the details over there, and take a look at every single part of the 3D model. And all of this powered with a simple link, right, which you can simply integrate onto your website. And this is the reason why a lot of these brands and businesses have been adopting it, simply because of how easy it has become to actually create these experiences and even integrate them. And this is not just it, right? Of course, you can go ahead and customize your general branding where on your widget, if you wanted to add a logo, That's something that you can do. And we've got a more detailed and a really powerful analytics stack. So let me just show you that, where if you have a lot of these 3D models, we show you the number of views you're getting on the 3D. Sorry about this. Yeah. You can take a look at the views you're getting on your 3D model. You can see the average time that people are spending on the 3D model over there, the number of clicks on the AR button, the total interaction time. Every single one of this data is now tracked, not just for your overall website, but even on your 3D model itself, so that you can really see how many conversions are actually being translated through because of this 3D model, and you can really make a more informed decision on which products are doing well, and probably put more 3D models for them and have these integrations onto your website. So yeah, this is how like this content is now being used, and how we've made it so simple to actually integrate onto your website and get started with it over there. So now that I've taken you through all these parts, I hope you have a good understanding on the overall space of AR, VR, 3D, more about 3D and AR itself, how these brands are using it, why they're using it, the platforms which are enabling it, and of course now the tools which have made it much more simpler to actually go create this content, and how you can go and integrate it onto the website. So now that I've taken you through all these parts, I'll finally go to the next part, which is questions. So yeah, I hope this was helpful, and you guys were able to sort of get something out of this. So if you guys have any questions about these technologies, 3D itself, feel free to ask, and I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Thanks a lot for that amazing session, Akash. It was an amazing, especially the demo part was really interesting. And so before we get started with the questions for all the viewers, if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot them out. We have right now, we have, so the first question is Akash, one of our viewers, he wants to know a little more about mixed reality itself. That is, apart from what you discussed about, maybe just a very simpler explanation for any layman to understand, if you can.
Got it. Sure thing. Why not? So as I said, virtual reality is where you put on this device and you're being transported to a different space entirely. Where once you put on this device, it's a virtual environment, right? And this virtual environment is transporting you to a different space entirely, and that's what virtual reality is about. Augmented reality is where you take this virtual content and bring it into your world, like the examples which I showed you with the furniture over there. And mixed reality is where I can actually go and interact with these models, where I can go and pick it up with my hand, right? So it's an extension to augmented reality, I would say, where you can now take your hands and go and interact with the model and probably go place something on top. Let's say there's a virtual character, you can go and high-five that character. The character can now come and interact with you too. It's able to detect where you're standing in space. All of this is where mixed reality comes in, right? It's an extension to augmented reality, and it's one where you can interact with all of this virtual content that I just spoke about, and this virtual content can also interact with you. And this is enabled by these devices itself, which is the headsets that I just spoke about, these mixed reality headsets, the HoloLens, the mixed reality headset like Magic Leap, Nreal. All of these devices are ones which actually enable these mixed reality experiences, and something that's going to be coming into the market to enable you to try these experiences itself.
Great. Perfect. Thanks a lot for that, Akash, once again. And so moving on to the next question. So we have.
Yeah, I can probably take them over there to probably help you there as well. So the next one I think is by Swati, where Swati asks, how do you convert an image to 3D? Any specific tools? How does it look so real? What if some images are missed? Well, so Swati, what we do is, once you send across your images, we ask for 6 images, right? And that's the reason why we ask for 6 is for 6 different views, right? Where we ask for the top, bottom, left, right, front, and back. These are the 6 different views that we ask you for, so that we are able to take a look at it from all these different angles. And along with these details, we ask for some basic measurement details too, right? Where we ask for what are the dimensions of the product, simple height, width, breadth, so that we understand what the overall thing looks like. And then we are able to broadly create something like a cube and start modeling this entire product inside this cube, right? Because now we know what the size of that cube is, which is broadly is going to be X, Y, and Z. And then we are able to take that and extend that out and start modeling this product. When you're talking about the tools, as I said, there's Blender. Blender is an open source 3D tool that enables you to go ahead and create these models. We've got other complex tools. I mean, Blender is also slightly complex if you start going to the workflows, but tools which are not very easy to get started with, but once you get a hang of it, it's really powerful. These tools are Maya, there's Autodesk. If you're talking about architecture, there's SketchUp. If you're talking about CAD workflows, there's Rhino. There are tools just to create, clothing. There are very different, tools that exist out there, which enable you to actually go ahead and create these 3D models. So it depends on the use case that you're going for, and depending on the use case you're going for, there are different tools. But what we use to actually create the furniture, the accessories, the shoes, every single one of these 3D models is using Blender itself. We use open source tools because we really want to support the community over there. I hope that answers your question, Swati. So the next question is by Kumar, and Kumar asks, we have a company which makes AR filters for Insta and Snapchat. How can Scapic help with AR filters? Well, I think we can take this offline, but so one way in which Scapic definitely helps helps enable these experiences is on the web. So a lot of these platforms, which is Facebook, Snapchat, require you to have the application installed, where a lot of the experiences that you create are used on these different platforms, right? Facebook and Snapchat, where you require the user to go ahead and open up the Facebook app or the Snapchat app. Let's say you wanted to integrate something directly into your website, right? So that's where we help you create these filters, right from try-ons, where you can try on glasses, to watches, to jewelry, to even seeing what furniture looks like in your space, to even probably seeing what certain products like shoes, certain electronic products, all of these different products, you can probably take a look at them into your space itself. That's these are ways in which we can help enable these experiences on the web. Rahul asks, there are very less resources to learn about AR and VR for beginners. Your suggestion, please. Well, firstly, I would, like one important part of these technologies is actually trying to understand these technologies, right? Which is, if you try to learn the basics and try and understand what these technologies actually are, that's the first step and the first barrier, because once you do that, whatever term is thrown at you, whatever you probably see on the internet, is going to be pretty easy for you to get and understand over there, right? So that's the first step, which is to first understand what these different technologies are and the terminologies. And the next part is to actually go and see ways in which we can actually go create this content, right? And that might require you to, depending on your interest and depending on the use case that you're trying to create it for, that might require you to go into different levels of complexity, where maybe, if you actually want to go ahead and create the 3D models, you'll have to go learn certain 3D tools. If you want to go ahead and actually create AR content, Scapic is definitely one way, but there are different tools that exist out there, like Spark AR. Spark AR is what enables you to create it for Facebook, across for Instagram, the Facebook platform, Messenger, all of these different ways are what you can use Spark AR for. And then you can use the Snapchat Lens platform to create filters for Snapchat. So these are tools which are pretty simple for the end consumer to create content. So I would suggest you start off with these basic tools and start learning these different technologies. And then you go down to coding and get more complex over there, right? Because once you understand these basic technologies, that's where you can go and start getting into code, where there are tools like Unity, which you can use in combination with tools like Vuforia to go and create really complex augmented reality experiences, which are of course applications. Or if you want to create something on the web, you can use technologies like CJS, WebGL. You can go down to these deep technologies and start creating these experiences using these simple tools to then going and creating more complex content and exploring it a lot more, and then going down to the code itself and understanding what this is about. This is one way, a path which you can follow to actually go and get started. So Azhar, I think this is the upper question, which is, with the emergence of immersive tech, do you feel that the cost of adoption of this tech, especially high-end HMD, will affect the global acceptance of the tech, just like how we have now mobile devices broken down into prices? Definitely. I think this was asked above by Arum, right? Yeah. So the reason why this is happening in Rome is firstly, as I said, the camera, right? Like the camera has been one major leap for us in getting this ahead. And if you see, a lot of these companies started asking for you to use the camera in different ways, right? You might have seen that they started creating these experiences. The whole concept of a front camera, the smartphone camera, came ahead because of the prevalence of this particular reason. And all these companies requiring you to get yourself involved in these social experiences, to go create vlogs. Every single one of these have led to the space that we are in now. And of course, the prevalence of this hardware and reduction of costs of this hardware is going to make it much more easier. That's where, as I said, Apple is one major pioneer in the space. They're the ones who pioneered a lot of these technologies that exist out there, right from the notch to a lot of the different bold decisions that they've taken have really pushed a lot of the industry ahead. Of course, we should not just give them praise, because there have been bad things that they've done too, which is introduction of certain technologies like USDZ, introduction of certain standards and not conforming to certain standards. So that's where we really have to give praise to companies like Mozilla, companies to Google, who have really stuck to these standards and have tried to do a lot in the space of augmented reality and virtual reality. And they're the ones who are pushing this industry forward, along with companies like Kronos, who have set standards. So all of these companies coming together and really working together is what's going to get us there. Staying separate is definitely something that Apple loves doing, but yes, with the cost going down, that's one way in which consumers are going to start getting these technology and being more open to this. Because you might have seen the Google Glass a while ago, right? Like Google Glass definitely came in a while ago, and people didn't like it, right? It didn't really catch on because one major thing was there was a huge camera on the front. And people don't like, just imagine you're having a conversation with someone who has a camera on, and you're having a conversation with them, but you don't really know if they're recording you or not, right? People don't like a camera being put on their face. So these technologies need to become more user friendly. They need to become more less like from a user standpoint, less bulkier, more let's say similar to the actual devices that we have, or rather the experiences that we have, like right from our basic glasses to our simple mobile phones itself. And we've also seen that a lot of these glasses are going to be powered by these mobile phones, right? Which is, if you're going to have an Apple glass, it's going to be powered by your iPhone. So a lot of the processing power, the camera, the hardware, and of course the cost is going to help push this industry forward. So that's something that we can definitely see. Okay, so the next question is from Ashish, who asks, how can I get a job in companies that use AR or VR? And what experience do I need to get a job related to it? Well, a lot of the companies who are hiring for AR and VR right now are especially which are companies like Facebook, Magic Leap. I mean, there have been some layoffs in the last few days, but that is for other reasons entirely. But Facebook has been actively hiring. Companies like Google, which are actively hiring, like Shopify, who are really focusing on AR in the last few months. So a lot of these companies are looking for people who can come and build and pioneer these shopping experiences. Sorry about that, Rahul. Let me try. I wouldn't want to switch because that might close the entire thing. Let me try going a little slower, but let me know if it's still breaking. So a lot of these companies have been pioneering these different experiences. So what you'd be working on is trying to pioneer what kind of experience these end consumers would use, right? Which is right from thinking of how people would probably get into augmented reality itself, how that experience is going to work, to how the Instagram camera is going to look like, to how people are going to shop using augmented reality, are going to be the different ways in which these companies are looking at. So you would have to sort of know these technologies like AR and VR. You'd have to know these tools like Unity and Unreal, these basic game engines for you to get started with. If you're pioneering and if you're prototyping with these experiences over there, you'd have to know if you're trying out experiences on the web. You'd have to know these technologies, like I said, JavaScript, WebGL, 3JS, Babylon. These are different technologies that enable you to create these 3D or AR experiences on the web. So these are the different technologies that you'll have to know to actually get started with it. And if you know these basic technologies, all of these companies are looking out for people in this space right now. And there's a lot happening in the machine learning and computer vision space too, where there's something known as cloud AR or cloud anchor that is coming, where let's say if I am using an augmented reality experience right now and another person joins in at the same time too, are they both going to see the same experience, and how are they going to both share the same experience, right? So that's something that is going to be coming in soon, with 5G, becoming really more prevalent and being more accepted over there. So with all of this coming in, there's a lot happening in the computer vision and artificial intelligence space too, where people are devising these tracking algorithms. Where let's say I need to track a hand, or if I need to track a space or an environment, how do I do that? How do I understand the space a lot more? So there you'd have to learn a lot of these technologies that deal with computer vision tracking algorithms. These are very separate line which you can get into if you want to look for jobs over there. So there's a good mix of both if you want to prototype these AR experiences, or if you act and pioneer how these AR experiences work on these platforms, or if you want to go ahead and get deep down to the technology itself and build the technologies that power these experiences itself. Uh, Rudraksh asks, what degree have you done and from? Well, a lot of what I have done is not because of the degree that I have. I, of course, did a degree in information science, but whatever I have actually done right now has been self-taught. When I started off at Scapic, with the founding team, I started off as a designer over there, right? And I shaped a lot of the experiences and what this looks like right from the beginning. To then going to the, sorry, Rudraksh, what I was trying to say is, can you hear me fine, Azhar?
Yes, I
I'm
can.
not sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
Maybe
because
you
I
can
think,
close your cam if you're having network
oh
issue.
yeah, I think that would save out a bit. Yeah, let me see if that makes it any better.
Yes.
So Rudraksh had asked, what degree have you done and from where? What I was trying to say is the degree which I have gotten has no way influenced where I am right now, where a lot of what I've done is self-taught, right from when I started off at Scapic as a part of the founding team, where I started off as a designer over there, where I shaped a lot of the experiences right from the interfaces that we were creating to actually create these the no code tools to create the content for AR and VR, to then going on to the next step, which is building these experiences, where I learned development and built these experiences along with the team, to now taking more of a product role where I work across all of these teams. And it's been really fun journey across working on these technologies, because these technologies change every single day, right? So it requires you to not just learn on the go, but also make sure that you speak to people in the space. There are several people on Twitter. There are some really crazy people who are doing some really good stuff across over there in the AR and VR space. So it requires you to learn and relearn every single day, and that's something that I've been doing, which is going every single day and learning and relearning, and trying to bring that into whatever I do with the product, and try to shape the product with all of these things that I learn over there. So yeah, it's not been the degree, but rather whatever I've learned on my own, and it's been entirely self. So I hope that sort of answers that question over there. Um, the next question. Okay, I don't think there are any more questions. Azhar, you can go ahead and tell what you've sort of put down over there.
No issues. Yeah. So those were all. So apart from this, if any of you wants to get in touch with Akash, you guys can directly reach over to him at akash@scapic.com, and maybe you can get in touch with him and you can get doubts clarified if you come across any of them in the future. And he's an amazing person who's always ready to help. And also, all of you must try Scapic, because I've personally, played around with the tool and it's amazing. It's going to give you a very good experience with respect to augmented reality as well, right? So thanks a lot for joining in, Akash. It was amazing having you, and we look forward to, hear a lot of more about the XR industry from Scapic in the future. And also looking forward to see more of such demos in the future as well. Thanks a lot for joining in, Akash.
Thanks a lot, Azhar, for having me. It was really nice sharing this. And especially during these times, I think it's more important for everyone to understand these technologies and even create content, because that's something that a lot of brands and businesses want right now, right? Which
Right.
is especially to get started with this, and more people trying to learn about this. And thankful to Skillenza there too for organizing something like this to actually help educate people out there. Because I think when more people start to understand more about these technologies and start to get their hands dirty with it, that's when we're going to see a lot happening. And of course, yes, there's going to be a lot happening on Scapic too. So do pay attention. And yes, guys, if you want to reach out to me, do reach out to me on my email, which is akash@scapic.com. And of course, you can, if you want to have a conversation just like that, you can reach out to me on Twitter. And my handle is Akash Kuttappa, which is AKASH, and my name is right there. It's the same thing. So yeah, you can reach out to me in these two places. And yeah, we can have a conversation over there if you want to, ever talk about
Just
something.
one more question. Just one more question before you leave, Akash. Just out of curiosity, because you talked about e-commerce, how augmented reality is, actually going to influence e-commerce sector by 2022. Apart from this, what
Mhm.
are the other? Just in one sentence. I won't take much of your time because we are running late. Just one sentence where
Sure.
you're going to tell that these particular sectors are also going to have a good boom with respect to augmented reality in the future. Mhm.
Well, see, again, you can break it down into more of the functional use cases and also more around the fun use cases. So with the fun use cases, it's always been prevalent with gaming and all of these, and these are always going to see a huge boom. And I think with all of us going remote, there's going to be a huge boom. And what exactly we see in the remote sector, where VR is going to have a huge adoption over there, and how people are going to collaborate. So collaboration is definitely going to be one major space in which we're going to see these technologies evolve a lot more, apart from e-commerce and retail. So we have collaboration, we have the industry, and more of enterprise, where people are going to be doing a lot more in the in these industries and enterprises. Where now, let's say, if you want to train factory workers, or if you want to train people in that space, that's going to be seeing a huge adoption of AR and augmented reality, especially where companies like Microsoft and Magic Leap have actually gotten these huge deals with these big enterprises that exist over there. And they're focusing on the enterprise to start with. So Apple is one of the people who are going to be focusing on consumers, but a major focus is on the enterprise. So with industrial industries and enterprises, that's another space where we're going to see a huge, a lot of innovation happening in the space of AR and VR.
Great, great. Thank you so much for those insights, Akash, and thanks a lot for joining in on a Friday evening, taking out your time. And also, I'd like to thank all our viewers out there. So before we leave, I'd just like to remind you once again about the Lensathon Hackathon, which is India's first AR lens creation hackathon, organized by Snapchat India. So you guys can go ahead. I've shared the link in the chat box as well. You guys can go ahead and build exciting lenses using Lens Studio, and there are amazing prizes for you to grab as well, including the Snap Spectacles 3. So yes, you guys should definitely go ahead and register if you're very much interested in augmented reality as well. And once again, thanks a lot for joining in, everyone. Do follow our Skillenza platform, because we have a lot of more such webinars and other activities, engaging activities that we have to, take you all away from your mundane life, especially during this lockdown and the global pandemic. So with that, we come to the end of this session, and I hope to see you guys again. And yeah, thanks a lot for joining in. Thank you, Akash, and thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.